Today is August 15th, 2017, and this is your Lake of the Ozarks fishing report. This report is for the upper Osage of Lake of the Ozarks from basically Hurricane Deck and up, and this report is courtesy of Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service. Water conditions right now in the upper Osage, water temperatures in the high 70s, maybe peaking 80 in the afternoon. Water levels around 659.0. They're going to keep it at that water level for a while, they say. Probably till we get into some cold weather, they may start dropping it. And then after first of the year, they start the winter drawdown. Watercolor has changed since my last report 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you remember, but right after I did my last report, the lake area got a bunch of rain. The lake came up 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and then they pulled it back down to where it was. But back then, the lake was pretty clear in the upper lake area. Now it's gotten considerably dirtier. It's clear the farther down you go. Like today, I fished down around 40, 45 mile marker. But at my house at 55 mile marker, it's darker and murkier here than it is at the 40. And then if you go up like say 70, 65, 70 mile marker, that water is going to be a little bit dirtier than here. So the main thing about the water is this. If you're out running stuff, you want to be pretty careful, because as you're running out in the main channel, you'll come upon some debris fields. It looks like sawdust, leaves and stuff, just stuff that's washed out of the creeks. And there's also some fair-sized logs out there in that main channel as well. So you want to be careful when you're navigating up and down the main channel. So just take extra caution when you see those debris fields. Just slow down a little bit, and you should be fine. Sure don't want you to run over something and injure your equipment, and then you can't go fishing. Okay, fish are really biting right now. I mean, I was out today and caught a lot of fish. Started off fishing some bluff ends. Fished a topwater bait on bluff ends. The bait I was throwing today was just a small size whopper plopper. Buzz baits would work on that thing. There are spooks, pop-ars, any topwater bait that you can possibly think of you like to throw it. I've kind of gotten hooked on throwing this whopper plopper lately because the strikes on it are just so violent. They come up and they just kill it. And so it's just a lot of fun fishing. But in the low light conditions, you can fish the back of the creeks, but I have more consistent success fishing bluff ends with these topwater baits. And so fish on those bluff ends, they're pretty aggressive. So they'll come up and they'll really hammer those baits. And then once the sun gets up, then I go flipping docks. That's what I like to do. I'll start off in the back of the creeks, and if I'm not getting bit in the backs consistently, then I'll start working my way out. From the back of the creek, I'll work out to some secondary points. From there, I might even move out to some main lake flats. The best bite I had today, which was the better quality of fish, was on the secondary points, that first or second secondary point away from back of the creek. There are fish in the back of the creeks, but the bite I had back there was small. Could be just the conditions the way they were today, and it's kind of the way it's been the last few days. But my better fish have been out on the big rounded secondary points, as right when you first come into these creeks or coves. The lures you can pitch on those secondary points. Jigs are a good choice. This is a zapper jig made by Crocagator. I'm still using the Pocket Craw trailer on here. I like that trailer this time of year because the pinchers gives you a lot of action, a lot of flapping action, and when that thing falls, that thing's just flapping, it triggers some strikes. And I won't change this trailer. I won't go back to a regular Critter Crawl trailer or the Crocagator ring crawl trailer until the water gets cold, until the fish start slowing down, they start getting lethargic. That's when I'll go to a less active trailer. So any trailer you want to use is fine. That just happens to be the ones I use. This jig color is Ozark Craw. It's a great color for Lake of the Ozarks. It's what the color of the crawfish are. And it's just a green pumpkin trailer on the back of that jig. Another bait I pitch around docks and back of the creeks and stuff is it's a beaver style bait. You've seen this before, but what's unique about this bait, it's on a Crocagator who sells it now. Wayne down at Fitzing is the one that invented it, but it's called the G-Lock head, and basically what it is, it's a jig head. If I can get the wire out of the back of it, and the plastic is attached to the shaft of the hook with this little wire keeper right there. And what that does, you push that through the plastic, push that through the plastic, and it's going to hook actually onto the hook shaft. What it does is it keeps your plastic from falling down. What happens is if you have a fish grab your bait and it pulls that plastic down, it has a tendency to wad up over the hook point, and then it's much more difficult to get that hook point into the fish's mouth. But this is a great bait also to pitch around the docks, and this beaver style trailer on here does a good job because it has a tendency to glide. You can put any kind of bait, any kind of plastic you want to put on this head though. You know, I've seen guys put anything from Senkos all the way to brush hogs on here, so it's just a good bait. Another lure I've been kind of pitching the docks with a little bit, especially if I get a little bit of wind, is chatterbait. You know, some guys like to throw spinnerbait, some guys will throw crankbaits. Chatterbait's kind of a good combination between the spinnerbait and crankbait. And what I'll do, I'll put like a swim bait, or this is a fluke, actually Zoom fluke trailer on the back, and that thing will just kind of wobble back and forth. And then I always like to put a trailer hook right above the swim bait on the back. Just kind of gives me a little bit more reassurance and confidence. But because, you know, I'm mimicking shad, I'm going to stay with a chartreuse and white type color. You know, if bluegill is the predominant forage you're fishing with it right now, then you might want to go to a green pumpkin type bait, you know, color bait. But chatterbait's another good bait that you can pitch around the docks. My number one bait I've been pitching around the docks lately is a product made by Zoom Baits. I'm not sponsored by Zoom, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I don't go seek sponsors out. But it's the brush hog. Now I take my brush hog, you can buy them with the chartreuse tails, but I take my brush hog tails and I dip them in the dye, the chartreuse dye. The reason why I do that, if you get a real good look at the bluegill that are swimming around these docks, the tails have a little bit of a hint, they're just lighter than the rest of the body, so it has a little hint of chartreuse on them. And so this is just kind of imitates also a bluegill as well as a shad. But the brush hogs are great, good all-around purpose plastic. This is the normal size. You can catch big fish on this, you can catch little fish on this, and the brush hog is just a great bait you can use. You can throw, like I said, you can throw square bill crankbaits around these docks. You can do all those kinds of things. I haven't really tried the deep bite yet because I've been catching, you know, the number of fish I need to catch shallow. But I'm sure there's probably still a brush pile bite going on with a 10-inch worm, and I'm sure you can probably get on some points and throw a deep diving crankbait and catch fish that way. Because the water has gotten dirtier up the lake here, the topwater bite is not as good as it was. You go down the lake, more around 40-42 mile marker, if the water's still clear enough, those fish can track those topwater baits. As the water gets muddier, you got to slow that bait down a little more and allow those fish to kind of track it. Sometimes when it's dirty and muddy like that, those fish have a tendency to come up and swirl behind it, miss it. So it's, you know, that's when I might go to a chatterbait, something of that sort, or a spinnerbait if it's really windy instead of the topwater lure. So okay, that's kind of what's going on in the Upper Osage right now. Like I said, it's not fall yet, it's August. It sure feels like a fall pattern. We've had these nice cool nights. Water temperatures down in the 70s already. Hope it stays there. The shad are back in the back of the creeks, and anywhere you're going to fish, make sure there's shad nearby. That's the key of what you want to do. If you go looking for my website, I don't have it anymore. I took it down, disbanded it. I've opened a Facebook page, what I've done, and so I'm going to have even more fishing tips and information on Facebook page. I'll even have pictures of specific spots where specifically on docks I'm catching some of these fish, or what some of the cover looks like in the back of the creeks, or on a secondary point of where I'm catching these fish. I'll have these photos and a little narrative about these on my Facebook page. So you'll just go to Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service Facebook. You should be able to get my Facebook page, and I'll have more in-depth fishing information for you on there. So until I do another report here in a couple of weeks, good luck with your fishing. Like I said, shallow bite's really on right now. You can go pitch these docks. And the number one thing you got to have, though, make sure there's shad nearby the area you're fishing. If you go into an area and there's no shad nearby, I'd leave that area and I'd go to another one where I could find some shad. But the good thing about the lake right now this time of year, pretty much everywhere you go, there's shad. Okay, so good luck in your fishing. Thanks for watching.